Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The CINIKRADIO podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cynic Radio podcast. Here your host, Cynic.
Hey, the facts are Spider-Man belongs in the MCU. Sony was delusional thinking they didn't need Marvel, and now he's back. And we, the fans, are 100% proudly responsible for that.
Agree?
As long as DC wants to make dark and gritty movies, they're going to lag behind Marvel in every category.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
IG, did we just forget Kim?
You guys completely suck.
This is the greatest show of all time.
And this is episode 137 of the Cynic Radio podcast, and I'm your absentee host, Cynic. And joining me, as always, my co-hosts, Igri and Kim. And on this week's show, we are reviewing the first episode, The Belly of the Whale, of the extremely polarizing new show from Amazon entitled Hunters. Can this dark, unconventional tale be just what the doctor ordered to fight off the self-quarantine blues? Let's talk about it. IG, the show starts off with a bang as a former concentration camp prisoner recognizes a face from her past. She traumatically is triggered and loses her mind. What did you think of the introduction of the butcher as he casually kills everyone at the barbecue to keep his secret? Was it justified or just the worst barbecue ever?
Well, it was absolutely the worst barbecue because they didn't even give him any ribs or anything first. And I understand, you had a couple of Jews there. They don't eat pork and everything. But, come on, you got to have some burgers or something on the grill. But wow, when it first started and she was accusing him and everything, and all of a sudden he just starts popping everybody. And the first person he pops is his wife. Is truth be told, that's a good way to tell your wife, I've had enough of your bullshit. I could not believe that he went through all of that. I mean, he shot his wife, shot his 3 kids, shot the people that were running away, shot her husband, and then started talking shit. I was like, this dude is serious. And that was an amazing opening, and I was hooked right then. First 5 minutes of the show, I'm in.
Yeah, I can't think of a more impactful opening of any show ever. I like the opening sequence of Breaking Bad, and The Walking Dead is good, where he just casually blows away like a miner to start the show off. But I can't think of a show that started out that way. Kim, it took him 30 years to build up his new persona and his life in America. So was it justified, or was it just a classic case of social distancing?
Nice.
Told you I'd work it in.
Can we talk about just an actual sociopath? He had the fake American accent and everything down to a T. And as soon as he gets pinched, as soon as he's caught, and he's recognized as being a concentration camp Nazi, the switch turns, right? And he just becomes this psycho. And you're right. Yeah. Taking out his wife, taking out his kids. Those are his freaking children. And the first thing that he says to this woman before he kills her is, I had to marry that swine, which is pig in German. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, that is cold. Jesus, it just, I'm so happy that we're actually reviewing the show, because it is one of those things that just kind of immediately right off the bat, it grabs your attention. And it just sucks you in. It's so good.
Well, Kim, we live in a time where writing and storytelling has become so advanced that even the villains are told in a manner that they could be sympathetic characters. Hunters doesn't do that. Not so much with the Germans, not so much with the Nazis. I mean, do you feel them positioning him as over-the-top evil? Do you think that's the right way to go with it?
I think it was a great direction to go, because there have been other almost neutral documentaries. There have been shows before in the past where maybe they came to America and they kind of, started to realize that people aren't all that bad. They had a turning over of a new leaf. And here, this is set in the 70s. We're coming right out of World War II. This is still fresh. The wounds haven't healed yet for a lot of these people. And these individuals but that's still fresh, when you consider 6 million people were, unnecessarily killed. And so, this is still fresh in the minds of not just the families that had to endure this, but it's also fresh in the minds of the Nazis who are here and they're seeking refuge and they're trying to build this Fourth Reich.
Well, IG, it's been almost 75 years since World War II ended. And as the planet stumbles forward, do you think it's necessary for shows like this and movies like Schindler's List to kind of remind us of some of the things that we might have forgotten as people?
Well, there's some saying that goes something to the tune of, those that forget history are doomed to repeat it. And keeping these things alive, even if it's just for entertainment, might stave off some of that. And especially in today's climate where there's been so many different examples of racism popping up in places that you wouldn't expect, all the way up into including the president calling it the Chinese virus instead of the coronavirus. When these things are happening, that's racism. And the only way to combat that is to put it in the public eye. And this is something that's happening now. This is racist against a religion versus an actual like skin color or something else. But racism is racism, people. So I really do think that even though this is out there for entertainment and it might have some basis in truth, it's something that it's good to put it out there. It's good to say that, hey, if you're the racist asshole that hates somebody because of something that's out of their control completely, you're going to look like these jerks that are trying to start the Fourth Reich or anything similar to that. So I agree with Kim that I think it's a good thing to put out there. I think that we really need things like this, and they need to continue making things to show our history and show things that have happened, like Schindler's List, Hunters, and things of that like. Yeah,
I agree with you there, IG. And we can't ever let go of this. Much like 9/11, much like all the other terrible things that have happened in those. We can't let it crush us. We can't live in sorrow over it, but we can't forget things like this. I know that there's places where they don't even teach the Holocaust in school, and you have to, especially in Germany. They should never forget what they allowed their country to become. I have a lot of, listen, there's great people on both sides. Now, I have a lot of friends that are German and they're great people, but if you bring up World War II, they just pucker right up. They don't want to talk about it because they were trained as children not to. I believe that it might even be illegal over there to bring it up. So we can't forget. The world can't forget, and the world definitely can't let Germany forget. Well, IG, I mentioned in the opening that the show was polarizing, and I say that because if you go through and you read the reviews, they're very, very back and forth. People either give the show a 10 and they love it, or they're giving it a 0 and they bash it to just living hell. What do you think it is about this show that's got the Tiki Torch crowd so shook?
I think it's the same thing as everything else. It's a way for people to mask their true feelings, their true identity. And, it's also the internet culture, right? You can be what you truly are on the internet. The best way to know what somebody is find somebody's secret username on Reddit or on review sites where you don't know anything like that. If you can figure out what those things are and see what kind of things they put up, you honestly can find out who somebody truly is. Behind a keyboard, behind the anonymity of the internet, somebody can really put out their true colors of racism and like, this is bullshit. Why would you portray Germans this way? And they didn't do all that stuff. And it's all propaganda and the earth is flat. Come on. That's where it really comes from. When people do those things, it's just like, the Star Wars movies that people hadn't even seen and were giving bad reviews to. Somebody says something that they don't like about it, and they're going to go on and put a review because you can. You don't have to prove that you've seen something to put a review. They ought to do something like put a questionnaire with some real obscure facts about a show up that you have to answer before you can
an IQ test at least.
So just to try and prove. Well, it's something. Like, you shouldn't just let any Joe Blow nobody put up something. But, of course, here we are putting up a podcast.
Exactly. We have microphones, so we're experts in all
That's
things.
Right.
Kim, the cast is obviously led by the amazing Al Pacino. And then really the rest of it is rounded out by mostly unknown familiar faces, unless you're a big fan of, like, say, Grey's Anatomy or something like that. Do you think familiar faces would have been better for the show, or do you think it would have hurt immersion in the storytelling?
I mean, I feel like it was beautifully cast. Now, I've already gone through, I've binged watched, the entire series so far. And from what I can see of it, my honest opinion is that it, except for one particular character, I think it was casted well. I feel like if they would have added too many big celebrities, too many, heavy hitters into the show, I don't know if it would have been as successful, because I think there would have been that clinch for the spotlight on who was going to be the more predominant character. And the fact that Al Pacino has such a mesmerizing role in this, he's mysterious. He is the most interesting man in the world when it comes to this series. And I feel like anyone else probably would have taken away from that, because I would have been focused more on which character am I liking more.
I think Al stands out head and shoulders above, and it's supposed to be that way because he's really the most interesting character in the show. You could even make the argument that he is kind of the main character, the center focus, at least in the first episode, even though the young kid who's slightly less recognizable I believe his name is Logan Lerman, and he's from Percy Jackson. He plays, I think it's Jonah, isn't it?
Yeah, he plays Jonah Heidelbaum, and he was also in Fury with Brad Pitt. I think he actually did a pretty good job in this. He may not. I think the problem is that Al Pacino just carries so much clout with him. He's just so strong of an actor that nearly anybody you put near him is going to suffer in comparison. Al Pacino's just that good. But this kid as Jonah, he did a really good job. And I did like him in the Percy Jackson movies. They were entertaining, and I really enjoyed Fury with the tank and everything in World War II setting. I thought that was a decent movie as well. So I think, he was a good choice.
I feel like Logan was a good pick for this particular character, because the main purpose was to find somebody who is a nobody. He has no self-esteem. He has lost everything, and he just lost the one person that, he loved and cherished, which was his grandma. And in one of the more opening scenes, he's getting his ass handed to him. He wanted to stick up for himself. He wanted to stick up for a friend, and he just fell flat. He couldn't. And he's sitting there, he's getting pummeled. And it's the character matched the writing, I felt, because they needed somebody who was meek, who was very humble, who had inner anger that is going to ultimately just split and try to burst at the seams later. And he is that, because I'm not saying he's wet behind the ears, new to the business or whatnot. He has had some fairly predominant roles, Logan has, but for this to be, cast alongside of somebody like Al Pacino, you almost needed somebody who is super powerful, and you needed somebody who was meek, that could be taken under a wing, like the real life version of the two individuals versus the character version of the two individuals being paired side by side was just, I thought it was really great.
Well, yeah, and him taking the beating shows vulnerability, and bouncing back from it shows resilience. And I thought they did that really well with that character. Also, the fact that he's not going to take his grandma's death sitting down. He'll put himself in situations where he could possibly be hurt, if not killed, and arrested to find out who did this to his grandmother, even though he doesn't really have the faculties to actually do anything about it. IG, how can you have near genius intelligence, be able to figure out just about any pattern, be smarter than most of the cops in the world, but be the world's worst drug dealer? I mean, and with his abilities, let's just call it, are we seeing some foreshadowing to come that'll play into future episodes?
I think so. I think absolutely that those things are going to work, and it's going to become an integral part of their hunter team. He's going to have his little knife, but that's not going to be his strength. His strength is going to be being able to figure out what people are doing, where they're hiding, what secrets they're hiding behind. And I think that it is very unique the way they're doing this, where they put a lot of things out in other types of shows like this that make it seem like he's got some kind of supernatural ability or communication with undead or some crazy nonsense. This is just somebody that, and I've known some people that just innately can see things, somebody who's just innately good at math to some crazy extent. That's this kind of thing. He's just really, really smart. But the problem is he's really smart in that way. The street smart's not so much. The ability to put himself in a safe situation is not really there. He's going to take the risk, and it could end up biting him in the ass. I haven't finished the season, so I don't know if it's going to bite him completely. But I know that from this first episode, more than one time he put himself in trouble that he could have probably avoided if he'd have made a better decision.
Kim, after some near fatal mistakes Jonah made in trying to get justice for Granny, he's captured and almost killed by yet another evil Nazi. Maybe he's slightly better at dealing pot than Nazi hunting, but we haven't really got to that point yet. But did they build the tension up in that scene where he was strapped to the chair, or at the point where he thought you might think maybe this kid is only one dart away from disaster?
That was a very uncomfortable scene to have him there. It could have been anybody, right? You could have put anybody in that damn chair. You're bound, your mouth is duct tape shut, and some asshole is sitting there chucking darts at you. Ow! Like, I felt it. I felt personally afflicted. I honest to God, I felt like in that moment, this kid is just gonna die from anxiety, until that knock on the door comes, his little saving knock. And all of a sudden he musters up all of this strength from I don't know where and frees himself. But once again, he's very meek. He's very timid, and he can't even kill the guy that is, he's trying, but he can't follow through with it. I feel like that's probably a healthy dose of foreshadowing for later, but he almost dies a second time, and it's like, which side of the fence are you on, man? Like, are you in this? Like, you showed up, you came there with a knife, you had intentions, right? Are you going to follow through with that shit? Or are you just going to, let this guy best you? So it was a very intense scene, and I wasn't initially expecting Al Pacino's character to kind of show up in the clutch and kind of save the day. But it was just kind of a glorious event to have happen, and to see his character, Al Pacino, whispering a Jewish prayer into this Nazi's ear, wishing him a swift death, which I just thought, damn it, I just love him so much.
Yeah, people need to make that decision before you get in situations like that. If you're going to hurt somebody or kill somebody, you've got to make the decision that you've got to be ruthless. You can't be wishy-washy in the moment, or you end up getting a taser to the neck. It's somebody that's, you've got them, backed into a corner. They're going to figure out a way to really kind of even the odds against you. And he kind of jumped out early and was, ahead in the fight, or at least got the advantage. And then he gave it all away because he wasn't able to follow through. You've got to, in a do or die situation, you've got to make the decision that you're going to do or don't, and stay out of it and stay home. It's later revealed that Pacino's character, I believe his name is Meyer Offerman, is also Bruce Wayne Rich and has a full team of Nazi hunting badasses at his disposal. Were you excited for the bigger cast, even though in the first episode we didn't really get to know them? Or do you think a lot of them are going to be red-shirted throughout the season?
I don't think they're going to redshirt him. I think that, I was excited, and, you saw the diversity of the people that he had in that other room. And I was really excited about that, because that's going to make for an interesting season. That's going to make for a really interesting show, because you're going to have a bunch of different people doing different things. And they kind of showed how they were all following Jonah around. Like, they kind of had a little collage or montage of him on his way to this thing, and different ones were with him at different points. So they were there to fully protect this kid. He wasn't in any real danger at any point, especially because this show does the prototypical villain thing where they're going to monologue some before they actually try and do something to you. That's one of the things, I would think a true villain would just kill you. And these villains really want to, beat you up mentally first. And I don't understand the point in that. If you're going to kill somebody, just kill them and be done with it. Otherwise, you give them the chance to get out and get stabbed in the eye with a dart, which if I'm going to get stabbed somewhere, that's probably the third to the last place I want to get stabbed, and we won't go into the first two.
What sucked for the kid, too, is that guy was really good at darts. Like, he didn't miss with any of them. You know, sometimes you'll just flop it and, like, the end of the dart will hit the board and it'll just like every single one stuck and it was perfect. So, you know, if he was going to aim at his eyes, it was going to happen. Kim, the show offers us something a little more interesting, a little darker, more graphic. I mean, the first episode, the butcher casually kills his family. Then we had the Percy Jackson dartboard, the Jewish battle chess game. Could the show be a little bit too violent for some people?
Well, you know, that's why they put parental guidelines and warnings on episodes before they get started. That chess game, though, that was bizarre. You know, this entire series, the more that you get into it, again, the more you get sucked in, it really tugs on you, right? It pushes the boundaries of what's going to be acceptable. But you have to remember these people were massacred, right? You know, so really what they're showing you is they're not showing you people being bound and gagged and sent into gas chambers or what have you, but they're showing you alternative ways that they were being tortured. And that happened, right? There was a lot of shit that we don't know about. We weren't there, but some people were, and those stories have survived. They've been passed down, and there's some psychotic, weird crap that was done to these poor people. And so for that portrait to kind of be illustrated in such a way, I think is good. I'm not saying the actions are good, but I'm saying that they're telling that story and they're kind of keeping that alive. And the farther that we get away from, you know, the 1940s, the late 1930s, the early 1940s, the less that you're going to see of it, right? Those people are passing away. Those people aren't around anymore. And the ones that are, a lot of them are very old and they don't remember, or they remember very little, or they remember askewed bits of history. Portraying this massacre, the sacrifices that these people had to go through, the torturous conditions that they had to live in, them being literally played like little pawns in a game. Just it's like I said, paints the picture that they were nothing. They were less than nothing. They meant nothing to an entire group of people. And if they made the wrong move, they were dead. That whole scene, that entire scenario there is a metaphor for how the Jews were treated in general. If you really sit down and you start thinking about it.
At the same time, though, that when they were showing some of those scenes in Auschwitz or wherever they were supposed to be at, and the Jewish people there were actively going against what they were supposed to be doing, that stuff really kind of made me feel good about them. Now, I felt bad that they were all getting killed for doing it, but they kept
singing songs in line.
And that speaks to the strength. Singing songs and doing their own thing and playing their own songs. That stuff just showed the strength of the people. And, you know, in a world where racism is still running rampant, and it shouldn't be anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Like, we need to stop. Like, we're all humans. That's all that matters. If we get past racism, life would be a better place. But as long as it exists, people of those races that are being oppressed need to stand up and do their thing. And I'm behind it 100%.
I agree with the sentiment, IG, but could we have done without the naked Nazi grandmother / scientist being gassed in the shower? Did we need to see her in all her glory?
No, we did not need to see her in all her glory. They could have come in and done the stuff that they did afterwards with the police investigation where they said she was gassed, and that's all we would have needed. That would have been enough. But again,
it was metaphorical for somebody being
but it was
stripped to their absolute vulnerability and put into a chamber where they are being gassed.
Oh, no, the storytelling behind it was good, but I think it was done more for shock than it was for anything else. And there's plenty of shock in the episodes that I've seen so far. Plenty of shock. They didn't need to go quite that far. And I just think that it was so far removed from everything else going out that it was shock in a place that didn't deserve it. That was one of the few missteps in the show.
Well, not only that, if you look at it from just a strategic standpoint of the hunters, and I know that they were trying to be I guess, metaphorical in the way that they did it. But why not just kill her quietly and quickly and not leave a trail? You know, it was a little too much on the nose with the symbolism for me. I understand that the police don't know or don't care that these people are here, and they don't know or they don't care that maybe they're being hunted, but there's nothing that screams like a big. Eventually you're going to come across somebody in law enforcement that's going to figure out, hey, this lady was from Germany, she's a Nazi, and somebody just gassed her on my watch. And I just think shooting her would have probably been a better way to go if you're trying to keep low profile on your team. Kim, your thoughts on the first episode, your rating, and will you continue to watch the series? Because you obviously have.
I think the series is freaking awesome. I absolutely love it. And since we're all basically quarantined right now, we might as well just binge watch something that's going to be worth your time. For me, I absolutely love it. I'd give it probably a 9.5 out of 10. And yeah, it's something I would honestly, I sat down over the course of 3 days and me and Matt watched every single episode. And to be honest with you, it's one of those series that I'm going to sit down and I'm probably going to watch it again because there's so much that happens in this series that I feel like there's stuff that's probably missed or overlooked because you're still hung up on, whoa, what the hell was that about? You know, like we found ourselves kind of having side chats, like we were pausing it and kind of looking at each other like, wow, coping with that, you know, and then hitting play and then continuing on to the next scene. So there's probably some things that we kind of missed, but you know what? I did the exact same thing with Game of Thrones too. And I absolutely love that series as well. So who knows, maybe I'll get around one day to rewatching that entire series.
I really did enjoy the episodes that I've seen so far, but I was really hooked after episode 1. So regardless of what happens, I'll run through the series, especially since Amazon did the right thing and the whole thing is available. I don't have to wait week to week for another episode to drop, which if it's good enough, I'll do that no matter what it is. But I like to be able to sit down, especially with everything that's going on right now. I'm home way more than I'd like to be. Let's give myself something to do. The first episode was really well acted. It was an interesting script. It was something completely new and out of left field. I didn't expect it. I thought it would be a lot more story driven as far as something completely made up, but there seems to be a lot of basis in fact in a lot of these things. And that being said, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good look into some history. I thought there were some things that people can learn about themselves and others through watching this. And I think the first episode for me is about an 8, but that's enough for me to keep going. If I'd have gone on the first 5 minutes, it'd have been a 10 all the way, but there was more in it. And there was some weak parts. Carol Kane's acting in it. It seems like, you know, she's just the lady from The Princess Bride in everything she does. And that's fine. Like, I love Carol Kane, and she's great. And she was good in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. But this is supposed to be something a little different, but I don't know, maybe she's going to kill somebody with kindness for real, and we can watch that happen. That'd be great in season 2. But yeah, for me, an 8. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, the concept to me is intriguing because we're still dealing with this after all this time. And once on a blue moon and somewhere in the world, they'll find a Nazi that is hiding somewhere, and they'll try them and do whatever they need to do with them. And In the Belly of the Whale took me places I didn't expect. Although I was surprised how often the show got brutal, I actually kind of enjoyed it, and their willingness to let the Nazis just be the evil fuckers that we all know and despise. They just went for it. I mean, even if it trended on cartoonish at times, I still really enjoyed their portrayal. Al Pacino is amazing. He's a national treasure. This is probably some of the best stuff I've seen him do in a while. It felt like he's been phoning it in, and he really sunk his teeth into this role. And it's nice to see him return to form. Overall, it's a solid show. It's a lot closer to a 10 than it is a 0. And if it's bothering people to be reminded of the evil that walked among us not even less than 100 years ago, maybe you need to take a good hard look at yourself in the mirror and simply ask, why does this bother me? The monster isn't dead. It's just hiding slightly and more subtly in society. I give Hunters an 8.5, and I will definitely finish the season, and I hope the Butcher gets his. All right, so we've been off for a while, and some of you have contacted us and wondered, hey guys, what's going on? Where you been? And so let's address some of the stuff that's been going on. A lot of it has been, for me personally, it's an interesting tale of job relocation, personal turmoil, a pandemic, and for busy people trying to schedule their lives long enough to sit down and talk for an hour about the stuff that we love. IG, we've been doing this for about 3 years now, maybe a little bit over. This is the longest that we've been off. Have you missed doing it?
I've missed doing it tremendously. This is something I really love doing. I like to sit down. I like to put my thoughts out into the world and let you guys know what I think, and maybe nobody cares. And that's fine. I'm going to do it anyway. That's the wonder of the internet, and I'm not hiding behind anything. I'm pretty easy to find kind of everywhere. But I like doing this. I like coming out and talking to people. But, we're living in a world where we're now social distancing and they're shutting things down. Entertainment is limited. But that being said, there are opportunities out there arising to better ourselves as people. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we come out of this. I'm hoping that we all take the right steps moving forward to keep ourselves safe, to keep our population safe. And I'm not talking about just us here in the U.S. I'm talking about the whole world, because this is a worldwide problem. And we've been listened to in, 37 countries. So all of you out there, we love you and we want you to be safe. And if being safe means stay in your house and become poor, look, I'm going to be in my house and I'm going to become poor right beside you.
I got a letter the other day asking how you guys keep going even now that there's no movies to discuss. But that's the beautiful part about where we are right now, is if you have internet, chances are you have a streaming service. And Kim had the genius idea of switching to Amazon and Netflix and Disney Plus pre even the theaters closing for our safety. Kim, how you been holding up during the outbreak, and what's been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge was several weeks ago after we got back from Dallas. I had bronchitis really bad, which terrified me because I was like, this is it. It's the vid. This is how I'm going out. But it did. It actually ended up putting me into the emergency room, and it got bad for a while. And for a solid week, I couldn't talk. And, probably a blessing for my husband, but hey.
I mean, we'll continue to do the show weekly as long as none of us get sick. And we most certainly will do the best we can to try to make it fun and entertaining. And we'll switch back and forth between old movies and streaming shows because we love doing it. And we love discussing the stuff and we love each other. This has been one of the best things for me because I was able to come out of my shell, find a voice and a platform. And what I can say to everybody is I work in a very public job with a lot of people, and I'm thankful that I haven't come down with anything yet. But if I do, I'm certainly going to do my best not to spread it to the next person and the next person. And calm down in the stores. I mean, I understand that you don't want to be the one person that runs out of toilet paper, but you're not going to. There's plenty of it. It's wood. We're not going to run out. It's paper. They'll keep making it. This isn't the end of the world. It's an inconvenience.
We have socks. We have underwear. We have T-shirts. We have rags. We have towels. We have water.
I thought you were going in a different direction with that. I thought you were like, if you're out of toilet paper, you got socks. Oh.
That's what I'm saying. That's the exact direction I'm heading.
And we most certainly...
all these things can be used.
We don't have zombies chasing us around. The dead have not started animating. So that's one challenge that we don't have.
If nothing else, this coronavirus has taught all of us that none of us are ready for a zombie apocalypse.
Just keep your friends and family close. If you have older people that can't get to stores, look out for them and do your best not to be that asshole that's spreading it all over the place. Stay out of bars, stay out of restaurants. They shouldn't have to close things permanently for you to understand that this is serious, despite what the president might be saying. The reason why, because people like to throw out numbers. Well, there's only X amount of infected. No, there's only X amount of that are affected that have been tested. And the more the tests become readily available, the more those numbers are going to shoot up. Because I can tell you this, they sat there and they said, oh, well, there's only 40 in New York State from the area which I'm around. And that's because people haven't been tested. And now it's up to 4,000. This is a big deal. Treat it as such. Don't go crazy. Don't kill anybody over toilet paper. But don't act like everything is just okay.
I'm a prepper. Like, I've been through hurricanes before. I've had my fair share of natural disasters. So I always have like a stockpile. I don't go out to the store and I don't buy up, 600 rolls of toilet paper at one clip. But when I do my normal shopping, I will pick up like extra. If it's on sale, I'll pick it up, right? Right now, we have to be in the culture of taking care of each other, right? Every single person is in this shit show together.
Well, that's what most people don't tend to realize. IG, how are you dealing with the lack of sports?
Well, one thing that's happening real soon here, and I can't wait for it, because if y'all remember the old movie Dodgeball, they had the dodgeball tournament in Las Vegas covered by ESPN 8, The Ocho. This Sunday, ESPN 8, The Ocho is going to be live. They're going to have sports that are almost a sport all day on Sunday. They're going to have a rock skipping competition. They're going to have a hamburger eating contest. They're going to have an actual dodgeball tournament. I am stoked. And the other thing is you just find other things to watch that are competitive. I've been finding, people playing MLB The Show on the internet, watching them play that. There are sports like things out there. But you know what? This is a time to learn something new. This is a time to broaden your horizon. If your whole life revolves around baseball, I feel really bad for you. But now learn something new. Or go find a book, because you know what? A lot of these libraries are making most of their stuff available as ebooks that you can check out for free on any device. So most of us have smartphones at least. Hey, check out a book on a smartphone and read a book about baseball. There's a great book about Ty Cobb out there. Go read about that stuff, because I would be willing to bet that a lot of people don't know much about, especially older baseball stuff. Even if you've been to the Hall of Fame, even if you've paid a lot of attention to baseball, there's stuff that you could learn, and just broaden your horizons. Learn about something new. Start whittling. Shit, do something. Start making soap. Whatever you want to do. Like, people are freaked out about hand sanitizer.
Could you whittle me some toilet paper?
I can. It's going to be a little rough, though. I'm going to send you all 3 seashells if you ask, though. And you need to know how to use the 3 seashells.
Selfishly, I think the one thing that bummed me out is I've done a few orders in the past for Investigation Discovery for various shows. And one of the recent ones was for a show called Shattered. And they asked me to do a series of prop art, basically police sketches that they use on the shows in order to, illustrate the scene. And I was super excited about this because it was probably one of the larger orders that I've had, and it was going to be in multiple scenes. So it had to be different stages of, a police sketch. And so I put a lot of time and effort and stuff like that into these. And I did all the work. I sent everything over for approval. I went back and forth with the producer. Everything looked good. Got the green light on it all. And their entire studio is shut down now. And there's no estimation on when exactly that's going to reopen. So production entirely has stopped on these shows. And so it kind of affects us more, more than just the show here personally, but like that I make money doing those things, and that's not happening now, so that sucks. It's not like artists are super rich anyway, but when something like that is taken off your plate.
Yeah, well, neither are bus drivers, and they closed all the schools
exactly.
Here,
It's like, that's what I'm trying to say, though, is that there's so many little, like, one drop in the pond has so many ripple effects on more than just airplanes and more than just restaurants, like it's like 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon deep, how this is impacting every single person.
Yeah, I agree with you. There isn't going to be a person in this country that wasn't touched in some way, whether it be, your job, a loved one, someone you knew. We're all going to have to go through some sort of trial, and some of us more than others. I mean, they said that there was, I believe, 2 million new unemployment applications this current week, and I'm sure that'll grow. Even my job is starting to be impacted because, listen, nobody travels into the city for work. there are no trains. So it's going to touch all of us, and we'll keep going on this for as long as we can, and we'll do everything we can to be funny and entertaining and keep it real as far as how we feel about things. And we're never going to sugarcoat it. And we appreciate you sitting down and listening to what we've been going through. And if you have stories of your own, shoot it to CINIKRADIO@gmail.com, and we'll read your stories on the show.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CINIKRADIO.com.
Here with Cynic, who you can find at CINIKRADIO.com. Also, we had Ryan, who you can find at thejimwits.com, and Kim, who you can find at KMCArtworks.com. Great artists. Go check out some really cool stuff. We'll be back next week with some new stuff for you, probably some news as well. Send your crazy news stories, any comments, questions, and concerns to us at CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Look for us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. Find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. And find us on Instagram at CINIKRADIO. You can also head over to tpublic.com, search for Cynic, CINIK, and get your own Cynic Radio podcast gear. T-shirts, mugs, cups, stickers, all the cool Cynic Radio podcast stuff you could possibly want. It'd help the show, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for all the love and support. Keep listening, sharing it with your friends, like, listen, and subscribe. And until next time, don't get captured.